Chapter 2. Activities Director. Someone's grown complacent. The deep voice shocked her out of her dark, dreamless sleep into a darker nightmare. She hadn't heard that voice in almost a year. What do you want from me? She stared defiantly into the darkness. He chuckled, the laugh echoing through the shadows ominously. I want you to face me. I want to look you in the eyes as I break you. Then why don't you tell me who you are so I can find you? She challenged. Another laugh resonated through the blackness. But that would take all the fun out of this. I rather enjoy seeing you flounder, trying to figure out who I am and why I'm tormenting you, and what this means for your friends. She sucked in a breath. That's right, he sneered. I'm in your head. I can see your thoughts, your worries, your fears. A cold wind washed over her, stealing her breath and cutting to the bone. You are powerless against me, but I love to see you try to fight. The sadistic glee saturated his voice. She glared into the dark. At least give me a hint. I already have, he answered. You know how to find me. You just haven't accepted it yet. Aliana jolted awake, heaving long breaths. A cold sweat drenched her back. Her hands were shaking. She squeezed her eyes shut, his words still ringing in her ears. You know how to find me. What did that mean? How could she know how to find him if she didn't know who he was? She threw her blanket aside and got dressed. She combed back her hair and wove the thick strands into a loose French braid down the back of her head. Turning, she walked out the door, grabbed the rope, and slid to the ground. Aliana pressed the steaming cloth against Mason's forehead, dabbing away the sweat. She dunked in the water, wrung it out, and wiped his skin again. She stared at his calm, motionless face. He would have looked peaceful, except his mouth was curved into a pained frown. Whatever the stone had done to him, it wasn't pleasant. That was why she was doing this, because he didn't deserve to spend the rest of his life in pain. Her fist clenched as she pulled the rag away, squeezing water out of the cloth. I don't know what to do. She chucked the rag down into the bowl, spilling the water across the floor. The bowl clattered on the wooden planks. She turned back toward him and brushed away the hairs clinging to his forehead, caressing his skin with her fingertips. Wake up. Please wake up, so I can slap you for scaring me like this. I don't think threats are going to help him wake up. A husky male voice sounded behind her. She sighed and turned. Cain. Aliana. A boy with shaggy blonde hair and sky-blue eyes stood in the doorway, a bag slung over his shoulder. Cain West had arrived a year after Aliana and instantly grown an aversion to her. It was more like a sibling rivalry than anything else, but the two didn't like each other. And what would you know? Aliana challenged. Despite his years of experience, Cain had never been the greatest healer. More than you, he retorted. Aliana raised an eyebrow. The former counselor of the Apollo cabin, Zoran Harding, had taught her the basics of healing. He had been one of the only campers to be nice to her, and just her luck, the first quest he gets, he's killed by a hellhound. She didn't like to think about it, but every time she saw one of the Apollo kids, she couldn't help it. Especially Cain. For some reason, he looked a lot like Zoran. It's been a year, Cain pointed out. I don't think he's going to wake up. Aliana shot him a death glare. It's only been a year. I'm not giving up hope until his heart stops beating. Or yours does, he mumbled. She whirled to face him. He held up his hands defensively. I'm just saying. When was the last time you slept? You need your rest. Her glare deepened. You don't think I try? If you had to go through what I do every time I close my eyes, you wouldn't sleep either. He sighed and shrugged. All right. but you're no use to him dead. He turned towards the other wounded half-bloods. In all honesty, if you died, I wouldn't care. No one would. But that's just it. However indifferent they are about you, they care less about him. If you go, how long do you think it'll be before they dump him outside the border and leave him for dead? Or worse. Before she could say anything, he walked into the next room. "That's not fair," Aliana exclaimed. "I know you didn't do it." "Yes, Miss Breck, but they don't," Chiron reminded her. "And someone has to take the blame." "But you didn't do anything," she held, glaring at Mr. D. "How could you let this happen?" Mr. D shrugged. "Whether you saw Half-Blood or not, you don't have any proof that Chiron was not involved." Aliana crossed her arms. "Chiron is loyal to camp. He wouldn't do something like this." Mr. D raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about that?" Aliana looked into Chiron's ancient eyes. "Yes." "Well," Mr. D replied bluntly, "if you're right, I'm sure the truth will come to light. But for now, you'll have to bid your show pony farewell." Chiron rolled his eyes. "I'm not leaving until Tantalus arrives." As if on cue, a pale, skinny man burst into the room. "It's good to be back." Chiron's shoulders slumped. "Speak of the devil," he muttered. Aliana faced Mr. D. "You're seriously going to let this guy plan the activities for the summer?" Mr. D shrugged. "Why not?" Aliana opened her mouth to list the many reasons why that was a bad idea, but a crash sounded outside.